Shalom, Patreon. It's a little warm out here. That's the sound a goat puppy makes. I was just helping my wife do a little bit of gardening in the front yard. In fact, if you want to see that video, we just put in 2 raised beds and a little cucumber bed. Hommy biscuits, Hommy biscuits, biscuits, Hommy biscuits on YouTube. And she does all the gardening and homesteading and chicken incubating and goat puppying and all that stuff. The softer side of survival is her tagline. I try not to be that soft. But in the doing of this garden plot, hydrate. We used 6 wheelbarrows of compost. By the way, if you have one of these and you want to be able to hang it, you take a little piece of rebar tie wire or baling wire and you fold it like that, and then you can just hang it on your belt or in your pocket. Here, I'll show you. Let me show you this incredible marvel of modern engineering. Again, see, like that. Ta-da! It just hangs right on there. Anyway, I digress. 6 wheelbarrows of compost. We have had extraordinary success using compost in our gardening methodologies in the past. One of the challenges thus far here in Arklatexa, aka Eastern Oklahoma, near Western Arkansas, is that we have to this point not had compost to garden with. We're working with admittedly depleted soils and in a climate that we've not gardened in before during a period of time, what I believe is entering into a grand solar minimum, meaning that all of the historical data to this point is basically null and void for trying to navigate the conditions in which we are planting. Frankly, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating when you talk to the guys at the co-op and they're like, been farming 52 years in this area, never seen anything like it. You know, talk to the guys at the cooperative extension, they're like, lots of rain. Yeah, no crap, you think? I'm like, yeah, all right, what do we do? Plant more? Thanks, bro. So compost, we've to this point not had compost, but we've been making compost, lots of it. And so I wanted to just have a little talk with you about composting and compost and the power of compost. So I'm gonna try not to make you dizzy, okay? But this area right here, it's kind of hard to see, but this pile here and this pile here, this is all compost. Now I took my rototiller. This wasn't a big pile, a mound, because typically you would mound it up. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I ran my tiller through there to break it all up and churn it all up. It's great stuff, really, really good stuff compared to our hard, dull, brownish red clay dirt that we have here. This stuff's great, and I know it has lots of nutrients in it. I know it has lots of nutrients in it because all of the muckings from our chicken coop and our chicken run go in here, which is basically pine shavings and chicken crap, super high in nitrogen. Grass clippings, super high in nitrogen. Yeah, grass clippings. You can bag your grass, or what grandma does is she just goes out there with a rake and rakes it up into piles, puts it in her garden cart, and then carries it back to her garden or her compost pile. But grass clippings, super high in nitrogen. Dead leaves, and we'll get to how you layer this stuff in a minute. Dead leaves, pine needles, not too many because they're highly acidic. I see a toddler. I love your pigtails. Hey, come here. Come here. You want to say hi to the people? She's like, no, I'm going to the swing. I don't care about you, Patreon. Get a life. Don't hang out with toddlers. So anyway, Chickens that we have culled, and you're probably like, why didn't you eat them? Because they were bantam roosters. They're not worth the trouble, says me. If this was a true survival situation, we would pluck or skin those little guys and put them in the frying pan. It was not. We have an overrun of bantam roosters, so they get judiciously handled, and then they feed the compost pile. A dog with poor listening skills was in this compost pile, as well as a couple of neighboring dogs with poor listening skills. 2 sheep, 2 baby goats, rabbits, squirrels. It's impossible to overhunt rodents, by the way. So when the squirrels eat my chicken food, they also eat lead. I think an opossum, or a possum, whatever. A couple other odds and ends. And native dirt, right? And that all gets layered together. So what I do is I do a layer of brown stuff. This is gonna be like leaves, dried pine straw, or wood chips. And a layer of green stuff. This will be like grass, green leaves, vegetable scraps, like kitchen scraps as well. Eggshells, you know, if you're not feeding your eggshells back to your chickens, compost them. You know, lots of calcium. And you should feed your eggshells back to your chickens because they break them down and make more eggshells with them. But you basically layer green, brown, green, brown, green, brown, like a lasagna. And then over time, that all kind of morphs down into a pile. And so in that pile, when I have an animal that needs to be dealt with, like, you know, neighborhood dogs that kill your sheep, when you kill them back, you dig a hole into the side of the pile, put the animal in it, and throw the pile back on top of it. Now, all of this breaking down is accomplished, in my experience, by some gigantic worms. We have, you know, your standard size worms in here, you know, 3 to 4 inch worms. We also, and I'm not exaggerating, have worms in here the diameter of my pinky, a foot long. You can hear the sound they make when they go back in there. They go, it's crazy. I actually, while I was digging in here earlier, thought I'd hit a little den of snakes. They were worms. And those worms are chewing through all this and breaking it down. They're breaking down the stuff from those animals. You know, bones and fur take the longest to degrade, but everything else, and the spinal column is kind of iffy. There's a lot of connective tissue there. It is possible to get a spinal column of a sheep wrapped around the axle, per se, of your rototiller after it's been decomposing for 6 months. That's fun to clean off. Oh, there's also deer guts in here. Anything that's organic that I want to break down and feed my garden with is in here. Whether it's table scraps or scraps off the land or whatever. And then as I'm digging holes, like post holes, if I dig a hole and I fill that hole back up with concrete, what do I do with the dirt? I put it in the wheelbarrow and I bring it over here and I layer that back on top of my pile. And I'm consistently, probably every 3 months, coming out here and shoveling this up and turning it, piling it back up again, and letting those worms get all through there and do all its things. I'm not the consummate expert on composting. However, there's lots of people that are. So you could do some of your own research and find the best methodologies that will work for you given what you have at your disposal. But it really helps. The amount of nutrients that are in this right here. I mean, look at just the color difference. See that dark black, almost black, dark brown? And then look over here. See that? That's the color of my native dirt right there. This is not very nutrient dense. This is, okay? So heretofore on property, we have not had compost at our disposal. However, we have used compost in North Texas to great benefit. I had 14-foot sunflowers in my backyard, 8 foot taller than the privacy fence in between our backyards. And people were like, what is that? Oh, those are sunflowers. We had 9 foot tall corn in our backyard in North Texas. In our backyard. Phenomenal yields. And I've been thinking about it here. You know, we're having, frankly, a good bit of trouble getting things to grow here between the lack of sun, the just overabundance of rain, and the poor soil. We'd be dead right now if we were gardening for sustenance. But we've also not had compost to this point. So I am going to redouble our efforts to build this compost pile and build it regularly, and then use it to supplement the soil around here. And so I would also encourage you guys to consider composting. Find out regionally what's the best methodology that works for you where you are at, and couple that with whatever gardening methodology that you're using. Because that's another thing. Like, not all garden methods are created equal for the situation. They're like tools in a toolkit, and you have to know, like, no matter how many times I try, a number 2 square drive is not gonna turn a slotted screw. It ain't gonna happen. Like, it's the wrong tool for the job, okay? So garden methodologies are similar to that. Now, if the screws that you're turning are number 2 square drive screws, then your number 2 square drive method is gonna work great for you. But if they're slotted, or if they're Phillips or they're T25 Torx bit, my personal favorite, that number 2 square drive isn't gonna do squat on a T25 Torx bit screw, okay? So it's having the right tool to match with the application to accomplish the end goal. So make sure that you're understanding that, because frankly, this Back to Eden garden has not produced well at all here, given our environment. And again, I credit that to 2 things. One, we did not put down a weed barrier. We should have. We should have covered the ground and put down a weed barrier, whether it was cardboard or plastic or whatever else, for a couple of months before we did this, and we didn't. And that's our fault, not the method's fault. However, we've had so much rain that having 8 inches of cedar mulch on top of the garden, everything's drowning. The places that we've had the best results out here have been the tilled garden plots that we've done, because at least we can get some evaporation out of the soil with all the rain, that when the sun does come out, the moisture will cook out of the soil enough to not overwater what's in the garden. So, but we're also, again, dealing with depleted soil. It's just not very nutrient dense. In fact, this whole region, I just found out from networking, talking with my neighbor, this whole region, including the land that I'm standing on, was all strip mine. All strip mine. And then about 60 years ago, they came back in here and covered the mine back up with overburden and pushed it relatively-ish flat, kinda, sort of, a little bit. And they said, yeah, that's farmland. Nope. It ain't farmland, bro. It's overburden with scrub grass growing out of it and trees. Which, hey, the Father has a way. We'll figure it out. But point being, not all garden methodologies are created equal for the application. But I really do believe that compost, yeah, it can definitely be the deciding factor. And in fact, in Texas, it was for us. I had 10 cubic yards of compost in my backyard in North Texas. And so the last thing that I will mention is this. Our compost pile is right here, okay? Now, right over here, we have our barn, toddler, goat, puppies, and wife. But we have this little garden plot right here, which is also serving as a holding pen for the goat puppies currently. We have this garden plot here, and then right over there is our chicken coop. And right up over here, you guys can't see them, right back over there, that's where our sheep, turkeys, goats, not goats, sheep, turkeys, some chickens, and cow is the exist words. They're all over there, right? And so the longest home run, per se, I have with the wheelbarrow from where I'm mucking or collecting my compost sources or distributing my compost sources is 50 yards. And that's really from where I'm standing to the sheep house. From where I'm standing to the garden is 12 yards. From here to the chicken coop is 35 yards. So I can do all of this with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. I'm not going 300 yards from my compost pile back to the source, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's more or less condensed. That's done on purpose, so that I'm not burning a whole bunch of time, energy, and calories carting compost around and compost components around all over the place. So you want to try and keep all of your stuff kind of in a circle so that you can distribute and move things at will without too much effort. So just a little talk on compost. It's not super ultra tactical, high speed prepperific, but it is, I'm finding, and have known but kind of forgotten, really dang vital to a healthy and vibrant garden. And so if you're not composting, you should be. And if you are composting, you should do 2 or 3 times more compost than you are, because I know I should. So, you know, and I'm not the consummate prepper in all areas, but I know better. I know better. I know compost works, and yet here I am like an idiot going, why won't the garden grow? Because you're stupid, Bear, because you forgot. Makes you wonder, man. Makes me wonder. What else should I be doing that I know I should be doing, but I've forgotten to do, or I'm just not doing? Cutting firewood. That's the other thing I need to do right now. There you go, Patreon. Bless you guys. You're awesome. Compost. Think about it. It can be done in a 5-gallon bucket on the porch of your condominium, and you can scale up from there. It'll cure what ails you. Shalom.